Hello and welcome to episode 281 of the Smash Accept podcast. I'm your host, Michael Royer. You can find me on Twitter at DynastyDadFF. A lot of you guys, now we are heading into week 15. So you guys are either in the playoffs or you're thinking about 2025. Snoog and I just released an episode of 2025 running backs. You guys are going to want to check that out. You're going to want to make sure you guys are educated on that class. And now what we want to talk about is if you're rebuilding. Now is the time. If you have a trade deadline, I'm sorry. You're still going to find this information very important. You shouldn't have a trade deadline. Just abolish them completely. But we're going to talk about how to rebuild when you're in the playoffs, both coming out of a rebuild, moving into 2025, and starting a rebuild. Because if you miss the playoffs, it's time to start right now. You know, and I'm doing it in a lot of teams. Nobody better to talk trades with than my main man Snoog. How you doing, brother?
Doing good, Dad, because even I'm going to learn from this show, right? I got 12 teams with the first round bye. I got multiple teams, second, third, fourth place, whatever it is. And then I also have two teams that are rebuilds. So I'm excited to kind of learn from hearing us talk about this and some of the processes that I can remember to go to tonight, because there's some leagues I'm in that have like not a trade deadline, but a little bit of guidelines where it's like you can't just trade with everybody. But it's cool. So there's a lot of different types of leagues. So I'm excited to jump into this because you could go from a rebuild to a playoff team in a year. We've done it thousands of times and we've showed people how to do it, especially in our Discord. So I'm excited to talk about kind of 1 year punts, talk about playoff teams, talk about number one seeds, what to do on the bye week if you have no trade deadline. So let's jump into it.
It's Snoop put it up there, patreon.com/Smash Accept. Get you into our Discord, all of our, rebuild process, all of our rookie rankings, everything to help you guys absolutely smash for 2024 playoffs and 2025. We've been getting a lot of reviews lately in there, and I had to read this one from Andrew Gravas. Awesome guy. He's a commissioner of one of my leagues, and he's always asking me for advice. I'm like, yo, check this out. So he put, I've been playing in a league with that I commissioned for years with Dad. My only regret was not joining this server and community sooner. Both Dad and Snoog are super responsive, have great channels to set up that they really cover most of my wants, and server feel like a one-stop shop. Said it's a good cross-branding to the podcast and YouTube channel, so I don't miss an episode on there. Good community in the server with no drama or BS. A lot of people really have that. Like, there are Discord communities and people are talking trash. We're all about positivity at Smash Accept. He goes, I don't feel like I need to seek out as many podcasts or websites as I used to. I really enjoy going there for everything I need. Future mocks, $5 a month is the best money I've ever spent. Love that, Andrew. I mean, that's awesome to hear those kind of things. And the comment that we get the most is guys want to do the rebuild. And this is a process that I set up about 4 years ago, where the Smash Accept rebuild process, the Dynasty Dad approved rebuild process, literally will go from 2 years from wherever you're at right now. You will be in the playoffs. It is at 95% plus. There's only been one guy that has missed that over the entire span that I've helped out. So you will be in the playoffs. It's tried and true. It's a process that Snoog and I talk about it a lot. It's process over results. And if you go by our cyclical dynasty process, where you're doing things, where you're buying vets at the right time, selling vets at the right time, you will be in that spot. And Snoog, right now, it's time to sell the vets. So first I want to cover is my one league that I did not make the playoffs, Smash Accept 8. Those guys are some real ballers in there. I've been trying to hold on, and I finished with a above 500 record, but I just missed the playoffs. And then I'm like, all right, let's blow this thing up. Let's make some trades. You know what I mean? So I start out and I was like, I got to start making some moves. I got to start thinking ahead of the curve. So I got to pull up some of these trades. Like, it literally was wild. I've made 4 trades in the last 24 hours. We always talk about making that splash trade. So that first one you want to make, Snoog, is that trade where it's like, all right, I am no longer, now that I look at it, I just made another trade, but we'll get to that because I'm sending out offers. The first one I said was, all right, guy wanted Kamara. I said, all right, give me a 25 first. He goes, no, that's too much. So I started looking at my roster and I was like, what do I have right now that will do me no good in 2025, at least the early part of the process? So I took Keenan Allen, Jonnu Smith, Alvin Kamara, and a late 27 second for Michael Penix Jr., a mid 25 first, and a 26 second. So now the way I look at this is I got my first for Kamara. I got, I gave up Penix I got Penix for Keenan and Jonnu, and I moved my 27 second into a 26 second. And sometimes that's how you want to just close a deal. So we had it this. I go, tell you what, why don't you take my extra 27 second and make it a 26 second? Real easy, but you get it. We talk about a lot. $1 today is worth more than $1 2 years from now. So this is a quick trade. Michael Penix Jr., I think, is going to start in the next 2 weeks because Kirk Cousins has 8 picks in the last 4 games.
Yeah, it's not looking good for that Falcons offense right now outside of Bijan Robinson. But yeah, these are the type of little wins you got to think of. Like, okay, you won't pay a first for Joe Mixon, but what can I do to make you give a first for Mixon without you knowing you're going to do it, right? Like,
right, and that's what this is.
Adding a DeAndre Hopkins, is it adding a Taysom Hill, a Jonnu Smith, and getting a 2/3 back where they think Jonnu's worth more than the second? Like, little wins like that is how you do it and how you navigate this space. Give them a give him Drew Lock. Yeah. Give him one of these starting QBs that'll worth nothing next year. Just give it to him.
1-for-1s are rarely the way to go, especially on a rebuild. You know, the next one, guy offered me the 206 for Ramondre Stevenson. Okay, I prefer Stevenson slightly, but if I'm rebuilding, give me the pick. But then I said, hey man, I said, yo, you're in the thick of it. I was like, you look like you're a little bit short on wide receivers. Let me throw in Adam Thielen, and you throw in, which he has the 301. I'll trade Adam Thielen for the 301 all day because Adam Thielen, as good as he is, he's 34. You know, but he's had back-to-back games of 23 and 19. Snoog, one thing I know about the trade process, and especially during a rebuild, this guy right here, he's going to be thankful because I gave him Adam Thielen and Ramondre Stevenson for a playoff run, and now I have a future trade partner. And I think that's a lot more important than people realize is in this trade, I went at it from an angle of you want Ram. Okay, that's cool. You probably want Thielen too. I'm thinking for you, like start to look inside the other person's. You like don't throw in, you know, someone that no one wants. You know, like say, Adam Thielen's going to do me no good. Let me help you out. And when you do it from that angle, you build trade relationships. And this is a win for both sides, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I love these type of moves because I'm trying to think from one of my rebuilders, a team that just got super unlucky, had CMC go down. A lot of stuff happened. I just decided to say, okay, I'm going to get rid of my Evan Ingram. I'm going to get rid of my David Njoku. I'm going to get rid of my Adam Thielen. I'm going to get rid of my Keenan Allen, my Devontae Adams, all these guys. The guy wouldn't give up a 25 first for Adam straight up, so I gave him Evan Ingram, and he gave me 2/3 back. Like little wins like that is how you do it. If I'm rebuilding and you have someone very interested in someone, try to sell them multiple pieces and get multiple pieces back. Because usually, like when you have a buyer, there's a chance that they could be the buyer for you that can set your team over the top. So that's one thing that I like to do, especially if they have another person's first. They're way more likely to sell that first. And then you're giving him all these pieces to stack his team and make the other first more valuable, right? Because you're not giving him all those players and getting his first back. You're getting someone else's first back.
Absolutely. Trade 3, I love Jakobi Meyers, but I don't think he's long for Dynasty. So the guy offered me what's going to be the 212. And I'm like, I like that. But you know how I am. Sweeten the pot. I'll give you my 27-4. You give me your 27-3. And that doesn't seem like a big win. But if you look at all of these, every single one of them, I just said, you know how I am. You know, this is how dad rolls. Give me a little bit of juice. Give me a little bit extra. And these trades start to add up.
Yeah. And now the 27 class comes around. It's stacked. And then it's 301 versus 412. And it's like, okay.
Exactly. Then the guy that no one's been able to trade all year, Tyreek Hill. He had a big game. So I've now traded Ramondre Stevenson and Jakobi Meyers for seconds, right? I take those seconds, add them to Tyreek Hill, and I get A.J. Brown in 2/3. So now it's like, now I've taken 2 players that I don't need, you know, Ramondre Stevenson and Jakobi Meyers, add them to Tyreek Hill, and now I get A.J. Brown in 2/3. You know, it's like, that's how you do it. Now you know what's going to happen in the playoffs. A.J. Brown is going to get fed this week. He's pissed. Like it's not been pretty in Philadelphia. A.J. Brown will put up 20-plus fantasy points this week. You can book that because he is going to get fed. Now what do I do next, Snoog? Is now I'm trading him for Ladd McConkey in a first. Now all of a sudden, you see where these start to cascade. They start to add up to more. And I think in your rebuild especially, always ask for that extra pick. And let's just keep trying to get younger. You know, like retool it. You don't have to blow it up. I'm not saying trade, you know, a proven asset like say Bijan Robinson for 227 first. that makes your rebuild last 40 years. You want to trade down and you want to just get more assets and insulate the whole way through. And these are just an example of what I've done from I just missed the playoffs. Now I'm going to trade. And Snoog, you hit on a bunch of those guys. Adam Thielen, Keenan Allen, Joe Mixon. Like right now you sell Joe Mixon and Alvin Kamara, and guess what you do in the offseason? You buy him back for less. Like I've done that so many times. Is right now I'm trading them for a 25 or 26 first. And then I that same owner will come back with rookie fever and be like, damn, I need something at that 206. I'll give you Kamara, and you get him back for pennies on the dollar. Because some of your win now teams, this is it. They're pushing all the chips in, and when it's over, they're going to rebuild themselves. You know what I mean? So that's why some of these picks might sound like it's a late 26 second, but it might not be. They might go ahead and just kind of tear it down next year or the year after that.
Absolutely. I want to talk about for some playoff guys that need someone to buy low right now. Devontae Adams. I just think he's got the Rams and the Jags next 2 weeks and Buffalo week 17. Mm-hmm. Rodgers has been playing good. He's been feeding him and Garrett. He's missed Garrett on like 2 big touchdowns, which hurts really bad to say, but I think Adams in the slot has just been so dominant for an easy target. Like he's coming off 26 points. He had 17, he had 13, and then 9. Then he had 22. Like you can tell he's really starting to settle in. Like targets 11, 13, 7, 12, 11. The volume's there. The targets are there. He's a touchdown scoring machine with Aaron Rodgers. 3 touchdowns in the last 5 games. I just think he's a guy that you could get for a second, flex him, and he can give you big league-winning weeks. So that's someone that I've been looking at, really trying to buy low on. Same with Mike Evans, just another guy that's coming off a week, and it's like buy low on these guys, flex them, and see you in the championship.
And if you don't have a trade deadline, you and I across the leagues, I think I'm in 18 playoff scenarios. I think I have 13 or 14 buys, and I know you're in that similar area. This is why the buy is so important, because it's talent to get into the playoffs. Once you get in there, it's a 1-week luck thing. You could get Josh Allen for 63.8 points and just go home crying. You could get Amari Cooper and he scores 52 points. What you want to do with it when you're one of those buy teams is be patient right now. And as soon as the 6th seed loses, you go get Joe Mixon, because now he's ready to start looking into 2025. He's ready to sell Mike Evans for a second and Wan'Dale Robinson, because he's trying to get younger and move forward. We're here to tell you, don't sell Mike Evans for that. Get creative. I gave you multiple different scenarios of there, how to get to 26 first, but I love what you're saying there, Snoog. And our 6-step rebuild process is really important. Step 1 is obviously assess your roster. That's what we're all doing right now. If you lost and you didn't make the playoffs, why? Are you pretending? Are you giving yourself an area where, and this happens in the Discord this time of year all the time, Snoog, is people will come to me and they'll say, you know what, Dad, is this a contender or a pretender? I'll be like, bro, you're really selling yourself short. Like you're just trying to hang on. And I did that the first couple of years of Dynasty, right? I would trade my first every year for one guy. And if that guy didn't win it, then next year I'd try really to get into the playoffs and use one guy again for my 25 first. And eventually you're like, damn, that really ruins your dynasty. As opposed to smash accept 14. I have 5 firsts. So I just traded 2 of them for Puka Nacua. You know what I mean? Like now you're in a spot to go dominate. Like you don't even have to be smash accept 7 was one where I had 6 firsts. I won. I was 1-6. I won 8 straight to get into the playoffs. It started trading these firsts when people decided that they were out of it. Draft capital is the way to win, period. You're going to trade those, and you're going to trade them at the right time. Vinny N was asking, how valuable are these mid to later first looking for this upcoming draft? Snoog, we just did a whole pod on this. How close do you have the 2025 versus 2024 mid to late firsts? Because the mid firsts this year were gold. The late first, I mean, if you didn't take Worthy, you win. Like it was great. Now, what are we looking like?
If you didn't take Brooks, you win.
Yeah, Brooks. Yeah,
Brooks. Yeah. I don't know why he was going in the first round. That's for another day. But yeah, basically,
I know why he was because people want running backs, and this year's loaded with running backs.
Yeah, the mid first it's gonna be running back heaven this year. It's gonna be like 2020. I don't know if you remember that, but it was like Cam Akers, DeAndre Swift, JT, all those guys were in that like from 101 to like 109, 10, J.K. Dobbins, like that's this year. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, like that's this year. Not saying that they're going to be bad like that class ended up being, but
DeAndre Swift was in there. Yeah, it was awesome. That was the year where if you were smart and you waited, we saw CeeDee Lamb go late. Like we were seeing legitimate wide receivers. Jerry Jeudy was like the 112. Justin Herbert fell to that area, but I think this is going to be a
Justin Jefferson was like the 201.
Yeah, it was beautiful. So, you're assessing those rosters. That's one thing, and that's a great question, Vinny. On the Discord, we do that all the time. Guys sending me their roster and say, I'm going to legitimately look at your roster like it's my own. And I'm going to tell you, you know what? You don't have a single first, because one guy sent me one yesterday. He goes, he didn't have a 25, a 26, or a 27 first. And his bench, his best player on his bench was Austin Eckler. And I'm like, you're done. Just let's blow it up. Let's start getting them picks back, because you're one injury away from this being the 101. Like you just don't have it. But in 2 years, if you trust this and you trust the process, you will be a playoff team, and you will. All three of my 2023 rebuilds are bye weeks this year.
Yeah.
And they're all ready to go. Are my 2022s. My 2023, I have one that is a little bit behind the curve, and I think is going to be a top 5 team next year because it has Neighbors, it has a Dunze, it has all these guys that we build up there. So you want to assess your roster. We talk about it all the time, Snoop. Draft capital is huge. Your core age is huge, right? If your wide receivers are 28, 29, that's not what we're talking about. You want your core wide receivers to be 22 to 25. And now there's a big difference. Snook, a lot of people say, well, Dad, I don't have 2 years on this. You can retool. A lot of times retooling is just like what we've been talking about, is taking Tyreek Hill and turning that into A.J. Brown, because you're younger, you're starting to move in that area, but you're still competitive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's what it comes down to. It's like, especially this time of the year, you can take advantage of so many opportunities. And those for that do have deadlines. Your deadline's probably coming up. So start making moves now. If you're a rebuilder, you should have no business owning a Keenan Allen or anyone like that going into week 15. Mm-hmm. Just ship everybody off. Even if you think you're selling for a little bit of a discount, like just get rid of them. They're just going to lose value, and then they'll gain value again before the season starts next year. But right now it's the time that you could go ahead and take complete value advantage of all the guys just trying to push the chips in. Because I know from perspective, because I'm a guy that's trying to push all the chips in. So I'm willing to lose a little bit of a deal to get a Keenan Allen or get a guy like that to be a flex player for me.
Yeah, and you got trades like this. I mean, Nolan asked, he said, I'm a fringe playoff team this year, third in points, 4. In a 12 team, this is a 1 quarterback, so that's pretty important. Which side do you like here, Lamar 203 or Kyler 106? I think our biggest miss of the year, buddy, has to be Kyler Murray. I'm really disappointed in the way that he's played. So this ends up being like 106 in a 1 quarterback league. Are you taking Amarion Hampton and Kyler Murray, or are you taking maybe Ollie Gordon and Lamar Jackson? And for me, it's still Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I'm still taking Lamar here.
This has to be 103 or 4 for me to consider that. And that leads us to our next point, is step 2 of the process is get your 25 first back. It was very important every single year because the 101 carries 30% plus more value than the 102. And it doesn't matter what year it is. It literally does. I mean, you could have got Jaden at 102. He's worth more than Caleb. But on draft day, Caleb was worth at least 30% more than Jaden Daniels, And I think you look back throughout the years, Bijan was going 101. Anthony Richardson was going 102. And he was worth 30% more every single year. This year, Ashton Junty will be worth at least 50% more than Tet McMillan or whoever goes 102, period. So one thing I'm trying to do right now, Snoog, is if I missed out and I got the 102, right now I'm trying to flip the 102 and the 101, do a flip-flop and give him something else that looks like it's in his favor. And it might seem heavy, but I'm giving him Jerry Jeudy in the 102. I'm giving him Jameson Williams in the 102 because he's like, oh, sweet. I get a sexy young wide receiver and the 102. But on draft day, it's going to cost a lot more. It's going to cost at least a mid-first. Right now, if I came to you and you had the 101 and I offered you the 102 and 105, would you take it?
Yeah.
It's close. 106, I think I wouldn't. But I think 102, 105 is what I would want for the 101 right now. And I think people don't always realize that
Close.
because they don't know what the class looks like. Snoog and I just did a whole pod on that to show you. We also did it comparative 24 versus 25. So if you can go get Ashton Junty, even if you're rebuilding, you don't have to pick Ashton Junty because you can trade him for more to move back, and it's hard to accumulate. It's hard to get that first, at 25 first. Snoog, who is the 26th 101 if you had to guess right now? Like if you're
Arch Manning.
Is Arch will be 20.
So that's tanking for Arch, and I think Arch is going to be a very good player.
Yeah. So we had a shed for Shedeur. We didn't have anything, catchy to say for Junty. Back in the day, it was like, what do we have? Like suck for luck, that's how far back we've been doing this. Then the third one is make your splash trade. So if you're going to commit to the rebuild, now's the time you trade. And some of those guys that I think are the most important guys to trade are guys that are going to dip in value, like Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill has maxed his value. There's no chance he increases in value next year. There are players that they've maxed out. Right now, if you're not in the playoffs, Kamara, Mixon, Henry, they've maxed out. And I think you trade them and then you get them back afterwards. But now's the time you make a splash trade. So you might trade Derrick Henry and a second, get yourself a mid first, and then get them to throw in like a Tyrone Tracy or a guy like with some upside, and you try to make those kind of moves. And they don't feel sexy until that 106 becomes, like last year, that 106 becomes Brock Bowers, and now you're
Brock Bowers, and then he's the dynasty one.
Right, exactly. So that's the kind of moves that you want to make there. Talk to me a little bit about other guys that I think they've capped out in value, guys that you're like, okay, I got to trade them now.
Yeah, I think definitely like a Tyreek Hill has. I think just look from the lens of like those vets. Like I think Tyreek Hill. I think yes, Joe Mixon, Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara, those guys that like we were telling you to buy all off season. Now we're going to tell you to sell, and then we're going to tell you to buy them again once the off season begins. And then it's just guys like that, right? It's Matt Stafford, it's Kirk Cousins, it's those type of guys. I think like Geno Smith, Kirk Cousins, like get those trusty players off your roster and go get better options. Like go get guys that can gain value, or like what you do is you buy those guys in the offseason because they're super cheap, right? Like Matt Stafford could play for 3 more years and you're getting a top 15 to 20 QB every single year as a QB3, high-end QB2 in 6-point passing. And it's just the processes you got to go through year after year. You got to know when to flush vets out and buy vets. Like that's a process. It's cyclical, like Dad always says, and you just got to go with that process, stay true to it, and contend. One thing that I always say to people now is like I've learned I was always like a 1-year punt and rip the thing down right off the rip and then just build a monster dynasty team. Lately, I've been building around like cornerstone assets and loading up and hitting on those James Conner, Alvin Kamara, Joe Mixon, Derrick Henrys. And I've been finding myself with a lot more 1 and 2 seeds and bye weeks and stuff like that. So that's kind of my process I've been going with now. But there's so many different things you can do. But I always encourage people, like, you play this game to win money and have fun. Why are you going to just choose to rebuild if you don't have to? That's my new theory.
Don't do it for no reason. A lot of guys do it just to do it. And that's where the assessing your roster is really just.
I have a friend that loves to rebuild. Like, he's like, nah, I like to just do it. I'm like, dude, you're just pissing money away. And he's like, I don't know. I have fun. I'm building a good team. And he is building a really good team. Like, he has Jordan Love. He has Kenneth Walker. He has Chris Olave. He has Jahmyr Gibbs, Anthony Richardson, Drake London, Justin Jefferson. Like, he has all these studs, but he's still not making playoffs this year. And it's like, come on. Like, at one point, you got to be like, I'm going in.
We don't teach repetitive rebuilding. Just continue to tear it down. So I brought up some trades that I made, and they were 2 years ago, so you can kind of see where they're at. So in the playoffs, I traded Christian McCaffrey in a third for Cole Kmet in a first. That first became the 104. 104, I took Malik Neighbors. But at the time, that guy wants to go all in, right? So that's a trade that made sense for him because Christian McCaffrey was someone that was going to, put you over the top to make sure that you won your championship, and I think people don't pay attention to, I traded Derrick Henry for Najee Harris and a first, right? And in the playoffs, you wanted Derrick Henry, but Derrick Henry, that first became Rome Odunze. And you just keep breaking these trades down. I traded Let me see what this is. This is 2 years ago, so this one's going to blow your mind. But I traded Derek Carr and Robert Woods for Nico Collins in a first. Nico Collins 2 years ago was worth a third, but that first then became a late first, and it took Bo Nix. So it's like Bo Nix and Nico Collins or Derek Carr and Robert Woods. Like you start to look at these random firsts, and it's just a matter of establishing draft capital. It's getting these guys trading during this time where I traded Tyler Lockett in the third for a late second. That late second was Bucky Irving because it was 2 years out.
Yeah, that's how you do it.
Like, and nobody, people forget, like we want to say these players are good, right? We want to say, I want this player. But you forget, like a late first could be, it's been Justin Herbert. It's been Drake May. It's been Brian Thomas Jr. It's been legitimate assets. Josh Allen, for crying out loud, went late first. Like you're trading players right now. There are only about 35 players I wouldn't trade a first for. Like they're in that area where you start to get to that fringe area, Snoog, and it's like the fringe wide receivers that are worth a first. I mean, do I want Brandon Ayuk, Xavier Worthy, Cooper Kupp, Jalen Waddle, Mike Evans, or do I want the 110 who could be something much bigger? And a lot of people do that family guy, like, do I want the boat or do I want the mystery box? The mystery box in Dynasty, you said that last year, and then you traded Mike Evans for the 110, and then you drafted Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey is worth exponentially more than Mike Evans. And what you can do with that on draft day is right now you could get Mike Evans plus for that 110, and you just treat it like a cyclical event, and you make sure you are buying at the right time, you're selling at the right time, and it makes it so much easier. It just makes your rebuild easier. It makes everything in Dynasty so much easier.
Yeah, there's so much you can do, especially this time of the year now. You have so many, if you're rebuilding or if you're contending, obviously, because you're either in playoffs or you're not. So there's so much that you can do now to make your team better for next year.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you got to think of it, right? Like even if it's buying 26 firsts and selling all your vets, just to flip the 26 firsts at the beginning of the year next year to buy better players. Like that's literally another thing I've done is I've loaded up on like 9 firsts in the offseason. I sold every single one of them right before the season started and turned my team into a championship team. Like there's or if you do it for 25 first and sell all the 25 first the day the rookie draft starts. Like I have so many Discord DMs weekly. Like, should I start selling? I had the 101 and 102 and 106. Should I start selling the 101 and trying to get Nico Collins, or should I start selling the 101 and trying to get
when's it worth
Brown?
The most?
It's like
when's it worth the most?
The day the draft starts.
So your picks, here's where it's going to go. Okay, you got your pick today. After we get to the combine, or even after the season's over, go here to here. Then you have the combine. It's going to go to here. Then you have the draft. Then it's going to go to here. Then it's draft day. It's here. Like the difference in what that pick value is. Mike Evans, though, he's right here. As soon as the season's over, he's down here. And as soon as we get to the rookie draft, he's even lower. So that trade I made where I got Michael Penix Jr. and a 25 first for Kamara, Jonnu, and Keenan, I can get Keenan with an early third next year. I can get Jonnu for a late second. I can get Kamara for a mid-second. So you can take that first and rebuy those guys. It's just a matter of investing in stocks. A lot of you guys just want to talk about, well, I love Alvin Kamara. I'm not going to do that. If Alvin Kamara was a stock and not a player, and you knew he was going to drop next week, would you keep him? You sure as hell wouldn't, right? But if you knew if you could buy a stock today for $5, it's going to drop to $3 and you can buy it. And then it's going to be worth $5 again in 8 months.
Yep.
How hard is that? That's why this game is so much easier. Fantasy yearly redraft is a lot of challenges. Dynasty, if you're good at it and you loved playing Madden franchise mode and you love seeing these kind of things, and that's what I love about the Discord is
I love that.
I can pass this on to people like, how do you see this? And there are people that have stock brains that can see things. You and I can see value of players. And that's where it's like, okay, damn, how did you know that was going to happen? It's not a soothsayer. It just happens every year. So why not trust it? Trust that process.
Yeah.
Get yourself in there.
You can sit there and say all this on Twitter all you want, all this on your YouTube, all this on your podcast, have these good takes. But if you don't actually do it with your dynasty leagues, then you're just not a sharp player. It's that simple. Like, we have the results. I show you I'll literally post. I think my win loss record this year was like 82%. Like, it was ridiculous. Like, it's like this year after year. Like, we're not just saying this to say this. Like, we actually say it and we prove it. That's the difference. So that's what we try to do. We try to be transparent. We try to show the results, show the process that we have. There's tons of other good processes. I can name countless other analysts out there that have great processes and great results that I even learn from, right? Like, for example, our good friend Dynasty Zoltan, like, he's the guy that helps sharpen iron in the off season. Like, so there's a lot of cool things. Another one, like Ray GQ, he has a cool Debbie podcast. He has the Wake Up Show. He's got tons of cool things out there that I'll tune in, I'll listen, I'll be like, oh, I love that he just said this, because now I'm going to do this. So don't be a know-it-all. That's one thing that I hate. So try to be like always open to learn, because like I said, I was a 1-year punt master, and now I never do them because I like winning, and I like winning right away. So that's one thing that I changed. So there's a lot of cool things out there, a lot of resources, but we love to be transparent and show you the value, the process, and the results.
And there's guys like, I got a customer review here from Doc. He said, joined the Discord late last year. I got hooked. A year later, I'm in 20 dynasty leagues. I followed the process. The process, and now the results are clear. That is like
music to our ears.
That's like, I'm getting a chub just from reading that. Because for me, those are the words that I say. It's enjoy the process, and it's process over results. He goes, it's an easy 5 stars for me. And then he posted his 20 teams. Every single one of them is top 6 in fantasy point ranking. It's like, those are the simple things where a lot of people are going to give you content. We're going to teach you how to do it. I have a teaching background and coaching background. That's what I love doing. So that's why this is so passionate for Snoog and I, is like, we want to do that. We talked about step 1, assess your roster. Step 2, get your first back. Step 3, splash trade. Step 4, roster construction. Gave you a lot of ideas there. And step 5 is liquidate and insulate. We liquidated on all those type of trades where I was telling you about. We're trading, Jacoby Myers for a late second. We're flip-flopping some picks, and we're insulating by adding something else. Snoog, I always ask for something extra, whether it's a Marshawn Lloyd, who people don't think is worth anything anymore because he had a forgotten rookie year, or I get a 3rd-round pick, because that 3rd-round pick this time of year next year is the way that I close the deal. That 3rd-round pick in the rookie draft could be Braylon Allen, like it was this year. Could be Isaac Guerendo. Could be, those guys that right now, I bought Guerendo for a 3rd in a rookie pick. I traded Adam Thielen for it, got Isaac Guerendo, flipped it into a 2nd, and that's a win. That's a cyclical win. That's how we do it. Step 6 is literally the one where, Snoog and I grind on this. Snoog is a master at it. I'm more of the teach you how to trade on it. It's draft prep. We will get you guys in better position to dominate your drafts more than you've ever been before. So it's like, Snoog's going to give you the content of who the guys are, and I'm going to tell you how to take that information and beat all of your opponents, because that's what we do, so that's what we enjoy doing. If you guys have questions on those right now, every month I'm putting out my dynasty buys. I may not put that on Twitter anymore. That might be an exclusive Patreon thing. Rankings, all those kind of things. It's like, we are trying to create a community. Right now, it's 470 plus people in there talking shop. Your girlfriend doesn't care. Your wife doesn't care. Your friends don't care about your dynasty team. Now you got a group of guys.
Your girlfriend definitely doesn't care, and I know that from experience.
The wife pretends they do until you make them your ex-wife. You know what I mean? But then we're just kind of go at that route. But it's just an awesome process to continue to just try to, even if you're not rebuilding, to just trust what we're trying to do, the way we're trying to do it. Chief has a question here. He's got the buy locked up, traded for what needed up being the 103, ended up being at 103 at the beginning of the season. Pretty excited to contend and have a high pick. Appreciate all your ideas from you guys. Just so you know, he's also new to the Discord, and it's been awesome. So I love those kind of stories, because so many guys in the Discord were playing like I used to, where it's like, I'm trading my first every year. Now all of a sudden, he's got a bye and the 103, right? So now he's not only going to dominate this year, but now he has a really sexy pick to trade, to upgrade right now, or to build into next year. So Snoog and I are doing this all the time. Snoog, anything else to add to that?
No, I think you crushed it, man. I was very proud with the start sit advice that I gave yesterday for everybody that asked. I answered tons of questions. I helped them start Waddle this week because Waddle's been a guy that you don't really want to be confident in. Devontae Adams, because the Jets have been a disaster. And I think, 2-3 shows ago, I said I think the Jets are going to really turn it up. Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams have been on a hot streak lately, so it's looking good for them and Aaron Rodgers because they have an easy schedule coming up now. So Jacksonville, Rams, Buffalo, like that's good. We love that. Just trying to give you guys what I'm doing. I'm not just telling you things that I'm not doing. I'm telling you what I'm doing. So, and I'm confident that I do very well year after year. I think I guaranteed get probably 4x my money back, 5x my money back every year in Dynasty across 20 leagues maybe. So I think that if I give you that exact advice that I'm doing and what Dad's doing, that you guys are going to do the same. So that's, even if you're 2xing your money or doubling your money or making your money back plus some and playing and having fun, like that's all that matters, as long as we're not losing money, right? So that's the advice I'm trying to give to you. Be transparent with you, show my losses, show my wins, and that's what we're here for. So I'm excited. We love this. We love evaluating prospects. The rookie stuff's coming up, so stay tuned for more of that on Twitter and on the show.
And the nice part is, a lot of you guys, when you start winning, and I know I don't want to say this in a bad way, but we all know guys that you're like, that dude just contributes money to the league every year, and I love those dudes. Don't get me wrong, because they help. You don't want to be that guy, and I think there's been some guys in the Patreon that have messaged me, and they said I was at about 50% wins last year in fantasy. And I'm like, wow, because Snoog and I are in the high 80s, like in the 80s for sure. If you take out my rebuilds, I'm right there with him, like 82, 84%. And he said, I've gone from 40 to 50% to 70% wins. And it's like, just from
crazy
base. And now think about that. So he spends $5 a month, and now he goes from 50% of his wins, which means if you win 50% of your games, you're not making the playoffs in any of them, to 70%. That means you're making the playoffs in all of them. You know what I mean? So like the amount of opportunities, the amount of bragging rights, the amount of opportunities you have to just talk trash, like this is something where we will help you with your rookie draft. We will help you with, this year I'm going to do a lot more where I'm going to help people with their entire startup draft. One guy, him and I sat down and he said, Dad, I'm going to just hand it over to you. I trust you with this, and then I'll run it right afterwards. He messaged me yesterday. He goes, you're the best I've ever seen at doing this. I'm 13-1 and still have draft capital. So it's like, I don't want to do a ton of that, but we are here with draft assistance in the Patreon. We are here with, entire breakdowns of your rosters, all those different kind of things, from $5 a month to all the way up to $20 a month, which is, we are literally going to treat you like our kin. So thanks again for tuning in, guys, and enjoy the process of rebuilding and winning.